Okay, here's a pro tip. This is something I was doing this evening. Um, it's good to have lazy things. I don't believe in working harder. I actually believe in working smarter. That's one of my mottos. Obviously, I didn't come up with that motto. Of course, I don't know who said it first. But in high contrast scenes, which definitely fall outside of the dynamic range of your camera, early morning, late evening shots, instead of figuring out using a spot meter, which I often do, figuring out what it is you want to expose for, which of course is very important. But if you're just running and gunning, doing a street photography, something that's very, very useful, doesn't matter if you're using a Nikon or a Fuji. Nikon gives you more bracketing options than Fuji does, but 3 shots is all I need. You can go into bracketing, okay, on your Fuji, the little dial there, the command dial right next to the movie mode, like on the X-T2 for example, and then check your bracketing settings for auto exposure bracketing. Okay, and then you're going to be able to take 3 shots. As soon as you take the shot, it'll take 2 additional shots for whatever exposure compensation that you want above or below that. You could choose a stop. Let me see. Yeah, stop and a third, stop and 2/3, 2 stops. I always use 2 stops. There's a reason for that. Obviously, we're talking about ISO-less sensors. See, all right, I have set right now for 2 stops over and under, so whatever matrix metering mode that I actually have set to take the shot, especially when stuff is moving. You know, when stuff is moving, you're doing street photography, you may want different lighting. This is really true. Let me give you some examples. Taking water shots where like the light is, and I just uploaded some pictures like that this evening. I was out shooting during the golden hour, if you will, this evening, down by the waterfront, shooting boats and street scenes, stuff that's, you just want to take a shot and move on to the next shot instead of actually trying to figure out what it is to meter. And I immediately know what middle gray is. But I mean, your camera doesn't know what you want. I mean, I love silhouette and backlit stuff. What I'll actually do is I'll actually have my auto exposure bracketing set for +2, which means it's going to take a shot at the matrix meter. I was shooting an aperture priority anyway. It's going to take a shot for the matrix metering suggestion for the defined parameters of the matrix metering in aperture priority that I shoot in. And then it's going to take an immediate shot in +2 stops and another shot in -2 stops. If you're walking around, it's a shot, click, 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 take another shot, click, click, click. As soon as you hit the shutter button once, you're going to take 3 shots. This is very, very useful. Not only that, it's also a training tool. It's also to get you out of the mindset that your camera knows what the hell is doing, because your camera doesn't know shit, especially if you're looking at glistening sunlight off of the water. Your camera doesn't know what to expose for that. I mean, it's going to expose for all that bright glistening light coming back into the camera, and the shot's going to be underexposed. If it turns out fine like that, that's great. But what if it's not? I can sit there and I can screw around with it a little bit, or what I'll do is I'll just take 3 shots immediately. You know, we're not talking about film here. You know, at the end of the day, you can actually erase that damn SD card. So, you stick a 32 gigabyte card in there, it's like, well, I've wasted 2 shots. You know, I could sit there. I actually hear people tell me this stuff. Like, I can actually sit there and I could meter what it is I want for middle gray and get the correct exposure. And I'm all about actually thinking and not turning your brain off. When you're doing street photography or you're walking around, it's not turning your brain off. It's just being very expedient. So let's have the camera set for bracketing. It's going to take a shot at the correct exposure, what the camera thinks is correct exposure. 2 stops above, 2 stops below. One of those 3 shots will be really, really close. Now, we are talking about ISO-less sensors. I mean, if you take a shot, once you blow the speculars, you're blowing them. But if you're taking a shot that's underexposed, you can obviously raise up the exposure on the exposure slider. Certainly so the case. However, your camera does have a set dynamic range. So when you're talking about morning shots or high contrast shots or late evening shots where there's like tons of glistening light or flare coming into the camera, or like water off of the glistening off of the waters, or some high contrast shots off of a white building, you know, your camera has X number of stops of dynamic range. So just stick it in bracketing mode, you know. It doesn't mean you're being lazy. You kind of are, but I don't believe in working harder. I believe in working smarter. Take a shot, and it'll immediately take 2 shots. 2 over, 2 under. That's what I recommend. 1 stop's not enough. A stop and a third's not enough. To me, even a stop and 3/4 is not enough. I choose 2 stops. At 2 stops, that gives me a perfect shotgun pattern of exposure within the dynamic range of the camera, such that I know I will have really damn close, if not perfect, within those 3 shots. And if your subject's moving, you don't have time to meter that. It's like, well, I got some heavy speculars here, and water's glistening, something's moving, and, ooh, I missed it. No, just stick your camera in bracketing mode. Okay, 3 shots. Okay, did I clear that up? I think I made that pretty simple, right? Your Nikon can do this. Your Nikon actually has more options for bracketing shots. A lot of people actually bitch at Fuji for the fact that you can only do 3 shots bracketed. If you can't nail it in 3, I suggest that you're a moron. There are advantages in some cases to shooting 5 and 7 bracketed shots. There are, especially if you're going to do HDR photography. It makes things simpler. However, Fuji is not wrong in only allowing 3. More options is always better, but 3 is enough, for God's sakes. I suggest the next time you're out doing a high contrast shooting scene, early morning, late evening, or really high contrast like buildings and glaring sunlight, that you try this. Not only is it incredibly helpful, it'll help you to see outside of the scope, because one shot will be what the camera suggests in aperture priority. Hope you're not shooting in program mode. And the other 2 shots will be outside of what the camera would want to do. 2 stops above and 2 stops below. And you will find that you will be liking the shots that are either 2 stops above or 2 stops below what your camera had recommended the proper exposure to be. I suggest you try it. It's incredibly useful. It is incredibly handy. It saves time, especially for street photography, early morning, late evening, and high contrast stuff like water glistening, sunlight glistening off the water, so on and so on. You get the drift, okay? I think I made myself clear. Suggest you try that. It's a wonderful training tool, and it makes things easy. Don't believe in hard work. Believe in working smarter.